Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a story time. My last story time went down really well. It was the story time of when I was sexually abused by a man who was 3 times my age, and the brushing over of the topic, because I didn't and still don't feel in a position to go into detail of what he did, but going over and just basically just saying, me too, it's happened to me, was kind of quite refreshing and nice, and that went down really well. So I'm going to do a different story time of the times I was called fat or overweight by adults at school. So both of these occurrences that happened, both of these times when I was called fat or overweight, or kind of it was almost like that was the goal by the teacher or the adult. So both of these occurrences happened at high school, and in high school here in England, I started at age 13 and I left when I was 16. I think I was due to turn 17 that summer. The first person who kind of called me fat, but not that directly, was a teacher. I was doing a gymnastics recital sort of thing, and I was doing it with some of the girls who were a couple of years below me in the school. So I believe these girls were in year 9 and I was in year 11, and I was slimmer than what I am now. So I was probably, to put it in perspective, maybe a size 16 or 18 when I was that age. And obviously that's not small, but it's not massive either. Like, it's not as big as what I am now. So I was doing this gymnastics thing, and skill-wise, I was fine. But we did the rehearsal, and then we would go home, and then we would come back that evening for the actual recital type thing. I was doing the rehearsal, and then after the rehearsal, the teacher turned around to me and she said to me, I suggest that you put a swimming costume on underneath your shorts and your PE top, because you're bigger than the rest of the girls and we can see your arse crack. And at the time, I was kind of like how I always do. I was like, oh yeah, that's fine. I'll find something. What colours does it have to be? And she said preferably completely black and bits and pieces. But when I think about that, that was wrong. That was so wrong of her. Like, who does she think? And what gives her the right to say in that way? Like, I get that she's trying to protect my dignity and stuff like that. And I didn't realise that you could see my arse crack basically. And I get what her intentions were, but the way it went about it and the way that she was talking about like what was happening and stuff was completely wrong. Like, if you're going to tell a student that they need to wear either, I don't know, a leotard or a swimming costume on underneath something to protect their dignity, putting them aside rather than talking in front of the rest of the gymnasts, that's wrong. But also putting them aside and being like, do you realise that when you do this particular move, your shorts do ride down a bit and we can see your arse crack? And sort of asking the questions. And then I would have turned around and said, no, I didn't realise. And I would have been kind of semi-embarrassed, but at the same time, that would have been a nicer way of approaching it than just saying, oh, I would prefer, as in the teacher would prefer, if I wore a swimming costume. But yeah, so she basically should have taken me aside and asked me the question, do I realise that when I do this cartwheel or when I do this forward roll, do I know that I'm showing part of my bum crack, basically? And I would have said no. And if she said, well, we can, and it's fairly obvious, so maybe you should think about wearing a swimming costume on underneath, just to protect your dignity and because that's a bit of a private area and you shouldn't really be showing it. And I think that would have been a bit more of a nicer way of saying it, rather than being like, oh, you're bigger than the rest of the girls, so you should wear a swimming costume. Excuse me? It was a bit wrong in a way to have her say that. So yeah. I was at the time accepting of what she was saying, but when I think about it, it was, completely out of line. And so the second occurrence, which I think was it affected me a bit more, So I think at the time I was either 16 or 17, so a little bit older than the first occurrence. And I was doing cheerleading. Now in England, cheerleading isn't as big as, say, in America. Like, cheerleading here is more of like a hobby. It's not usually seen as a competitive sport unless you like pay to go and get it done and stuff, like to go and practice and everything. So I did cheerleading as like an after school club at school. And the cheerleading instructor that came in, she was an external lady. So this is why this video is titled as Adults or Teachers, because she wasn't technically a teacher at the school. She was just an adult that came in to run the cheerleading. She came in and we were doing a few sessions, and I was, again, bigger than some of the other girls. And I wanted desperately to be a flyer. I desperately wanted to do one of these particular, like, I wanted to fly in one stunt. And it was literally just the one stunt. And I was actually the only person there that could have flown in that stunt, because it was one where, like, you were doing the splits in midair, and like your front leg would be on the shoulder of the first base person and your back leg would be on the back of the other person. And I was the only person in the cheerleading like squad. It wasn't really a squad, it was a group. It was more like practicing. I was the only person there who could sit comfortably in the splits or the over splits. So actually I was flexible enough to do it. I was just too heavy. And this is what the instructor basically turned around and she said to me, because I said to her, "Oh, I'd really like to do that stunt again with with the flying and just doing that one." And she said, "You're kind of really a bit too heavy to be a flyer." And it really knocked me. It really put me down. And actually, I kind of 6 months later started developing an eating disorder. So, yeah, that definitely affected me, that one. And I developed an eating disorder. And then when I got down to quite a low weight, like not like a really low weight, but lower than what I was. And I was actually naive enough when I got down to a lower weight to message the cheerleading instructor or the company that she worked for to say that I had lost weight and could I rejoin a squad. And I never got a response, and I don't know why. I don't know whether at the time, because about a year after I'd done the cheerleading at the school, I don't know whether they just hadn't seen it or whether they just thought it was inappropriate to, like, take me on just because of the fact that I'd lost weight. I don't know. That was me being naive and me being like, well, almost being quite literal in a way, because I was told that I was too big to be a flyer. I was too fat to be a flyer. And I went away and I lost the weight regardless of how I did it. And I was thinking, well, now I've lost the weight, so surely I can come and join the squad again. And that was my literal thinking of, like, how I've done what you've asked me to do almost. Can I join? And I didn't get a response. So that kind of knocked me a little bit. So that's it for today's video. Thank you for watching. And I hope that this has given you a bit of an insight. And if you're a teacher watching this, I hope this has given you a insight and a kind of a bit of food for thought in a way of how to approach talking to a student about their weight or about their eating or something like that. I hope that gives you a bit more of a mindful way of thinking, okay, how can I approach this topic rather than just saying exactly what you're thinking, because after having those two occurrences, it really hurt me. And I think it was partly the reason why I developed the eating disorder. So, yeah, I hope that if you're a teacher watching this, that you are kind of getting a bit of food for thought, and it helps you to realise that sometimes telling a student they're fat in a very blunt way can be very hurtful. But thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in my next.